has the hair technology changed a lot?
It has. It has and it hasn't. It's a long answer, so I try to make it as brief as I can. So the biggest evolution in the field is FUE, which everyone wants. And I, not to brag about that, but I've written the only major textbook in the world on this subject, which is harvesting hair from the back of the head,
Yes.
like this. So very
Which is
briefly,
sometimes successful and sometimes not.
it
Right.
has, well, it really has to do with, man, this is such a long answer. I want to compress it because we don't have time for it. So I will tell you, ethics, safety are so huge. Let me just touch upon that and then technology. So very briefly, because I think the guys out there need to hear the safety issue. Young men right now getting transplantation is a real problem because it's a supply and demand issue. What that basically means is there's a limited supply and there's an increasing demand and decreasing supply. And unlike economics, you never want your supply and demand curves to cross. What that means is you always will have to have enough supply for the future to fix future demand. And so if you run out, you're going to have a fake result. You're going to have a disaster. And so if a 25-year-old male coming into me wants a transplant, I would most likely 99% of the time not do a transplant on him. I would be looking at medical therapy to slow down loss and really try to help that. Let's take a 65-year-old guy on the opposite extreme. I may not even offer medicine. If he's got good donor, we're doing a transplant no matter how bald, because I know I've seen his prediction. So that's a quick word on safety that I can dive for hours on. Technology, without going through the whole history of technological breakthroughs, the biggest one came in 2017. Now, it's crazy as my first edition of my FUE book came in 2016, immediately outdated in 1 year. Think of a trumpet, okay? So a trumpet has a sharp end and has a blunt end. Before 2017, the devices were either sharp or dull and caused a lot of trauma to the graft. With the hybrid punches developed by Devois and Trivellini, both really good friends of mine, this allows you to cradle that graft with a blunt end, but cleanly cut it sharply. That is a 1,600-page book summarized in 2 sentences that I really don't want to go too much deeper because it's so deep. I could go into this.
What percentage of your surgeries or your business are you doing for hair?
50-50. Yeah, it is. So
do you think that men are increasingly expected to have better hair because it's so more common?
Yes and no, because, men can shave their head now, like Jason Statham. So it's, and so what's interesting is, 30% of my transplants are in women. People don't know that. And
No, I would have never guessed.
absolutely. And women, I have a very low threshold to jump in and do surgery. And the reason is they don't go completely bald. And they're not going to shave their head. So I have a built-in safety factor there. And so with women, if I find the right candidate, which in a nutshell is that they're stable and I've got okay donor, I don't have to have spectacular donor, but if I can say I'm going to target it here, here, and here, that's a win. So I do a lot of men. Don't get me wrong. I still have the vast majority of my practice, but I do a lot of females.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's not what I would have expected.
I know most people don't.